The Vatican has released the first images of Pope Francis lying in state ahead of his funeral. Hundreds of thousands of people are expected to pay their respects in the next several days. Good afternoon. The funeral for Pope Francis will be held Saturday. His open coffin is in the chapel of Casa Santa Marta, as per his wishes specified in his will.
Francis will be buried in a simple underground tomb at St. Mary Major Basilica. Meanwhile, here in Toronto, Frank Cardinal Leo, the Metropolitan Archbishop, will lead a special mass for the repose of the soul of the pontiff. And CTV's Scott Lightfoot joins us now with more. Scott.
And people are streaming in here. Mass gets underway in about just under 10 minutes. Church officials tell us this is actually going to be sort of the regular Tuesday Mass that would take place at this time, but with special prayers for the recently deceased Pope. This is sort of a Catholic tradition that these prayers are offered when someone passes away. In this case, of course, this will draw a large number of people, or is expected to draw a large number of people. Here to St. Michael's Cathedral, people have been arriving over the past hour. In fact, people have been coming down to the cathedral over the past 24 hours, ever since the news broke. Yesterday, they offered some prayers at the Easter Monday service, and then the cathedral sort of shut down for the rest of the day. People were coming by throughout the night, stopping just to quietly pray. We saw some people tearing up and also talk about their experiences following the Pope. And in fact, some of the people we spoke to actually had met the Pope. Here's what some people told us this morning.
His legacy will be remembered. Yeah, he had done so many good things, and I had the opportunity to meet him. Yeah, I mean, we were in Singapore last year, so I sang for Pope Francis. We were in the Pope Francis Mass.
I think he'll be remembered as a great man, a man of courage. He stood up to a lot of people in the church who probably weren't happy about everything he was doing. And I think he took chances, and he stood up for those who were greatly in need, and I think that's really important.
As Catholics and Christians, we believe that, you know, our earthly journey isn't the end, and so there's heaven, and we move to the next life, so to speak. And you know, that's where we believe Pope Francis is now. But we still feel that pain for losing the person that we love so much here on earth. So it's probably mixed emotions. You know, grateful for a life that's so wonderful, and humility and service, and also knowing that he's with God.
So again, Mass here will get underway in just a few moments, starting at 12:10. The Mass is being live streamed for those who can't make it down here as well. We're also expecting to hear after the Mass from Cardinal Frank Leo, the Archbishop of Toronto. We didn't hear from him yesterday. We're expecting to hear some comments and statements from him this afternoon before he and the Archbishop Emeritus of Toronto, Thomas Cardinal Collins, head off for the funeral, and then, of course, the conclave to choose the next Pope. There will also be special prayers offered tonight at 7 o'clock here at St. Michael's for those who wish to come and honor the late Pope. Reporting live at St. Michael's, I'm Scott Lightfoot. Michelle, Nathan, back to you.
Thank you, Scott. And as worshippers paid their respects, let's bring in CTV's Scott Hurst to talk more about the funeral. Scott, what are the procedures and the timeline?
Good afternoon, Michelle. The death of a pope launches a whole host of carefully orchestrated events. First and foremost, to pay respects to the Pope who just died on Monday. Of course, Pope Francis died early Monday morning at the age of 88. Then the next phase is then picking the new Pope. So lots to happen in the days and weeks ahead. All of this, really centuries-old customs steeped in tradition. So 9 days of mourning is now underway for Catholics, and followers will get the chance to pay their respects, and they will be able to view the Pope lying in state at St. Peter's Basilica as of tomorrow morning. Wednesday morning will be the first opportunity, 3 days of public viewing, and the Vatican has also confirmed the funeral will take place on Saturday, April 26th, beginning at 10 a.m. local time, 4 a.m. here in the Eastern Standard Time. And according to his will, Pope Francis will be buried in a simple underground tomb at St. Mary Major Basilica. We, of course, we saw that the Pope, just 1 day before his death, even presided over the Easter Sunday service to the delight of many people who were gathered at the Vatican. And now, over the next days and weeks ahead, Vatican officials are expecting hundreds of thousands of people to show up for the public viewing and also for the funeral. Dignitaries and heads of state from around the world will also be in attendance. So this is carefully orchestrated, not just because they are steeped in tradition, but because the Vatican is expecting a lot of people, hundreds of thousands, to stream through the Vatican to pay their respects to the Pope.
And as the hundreds of thousands say goodbye, let's turn our attention to this the selection process of choosing Pope Francis's successor. Tell us about the plans for the papal conclave.
Michelle, first and foremost, this week really is all about paying respects, and then soon after that, it is that next step of picking the next pope. Right now, cardinals from all over the world, including several from Canada, as you heard Scott Lightfoot mention, are making their way to the Vatican to begin the process of selecting the next pope. To fill the vacancy, the cardinals will meet for the conclave, and right here, you're looking at a number of names and their faces as who could be the next pope. These are some of the top contenders in the mix, and it is an incredibly secretive process of electing a new pope, and that process begins about 15 to 20 days after the pope's passing. So when we look at a calendar that takes us into early May, only cardinals under the age of 80 are eligible to vote, and that includes more than 130 cardinals currently. A candidate must receive 2/3 of all votes to become a pope, and as I mentioned, it is incredibly secretive. All the cardinals will gather in the Sistine Chapel for the vote. The chapel is sealed off, ensuring secrecy. Cardinals will cast their votes in rounds, needing a 2/3 majority, as I mentioned, required to elect a new pope. So how does the public find out? So after each round, we will see smoke rising from the Vatican, and if it is black smoke, that means that the selection process hasn't been completed yet. No single cardinal was able to get enough of the vote. If people lined up outside the Vatican see white smoke, that means a new pope has been selected. So that is the first time the public will be able to find out how the process is going and if and when a new pope will be selected, Michelle.
It is quite something to watch, and the world will be watching. CTV's Scott Hurst in the CTV National Newsroom. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
And this is a live view of the Vatican this hour. The public viewing of the pontiff will begin tomorrow. And CTV's Genevieve Beauchemin joins us now from Vatican City. Genevieve, tell us about the people arriving in St. Peter's Square.
Well, there's so many who have been flocking here all day. Now, the public viewing does start tomorrow. Today, there was a viewing for those who are closest to the Pope, members of the Vatican family, members of workers here. And I spoke to one person who had been to that viewing and talked about just how emotional it was to be there, to see a friend, he said, that he had been, will no longer see in life, but will see in heaven. So that's the kind of feeling that many people say that they will feel here over the next few days, and they've come to pay their respects. I spoke to a church group from Ontario. They had planned to be here because they were coming for the Jubilee year. We know this is the Jubilee year of the church, so they were making this pilgrimage here, but they say that their pilgrimage takes a whole new sense. They're from a church just in Stittsville, Ontario, and they say that they have come to pay tribute. They're focusing all their prayers on the Pope now, they say, and they talked about him and his humility, and that's what we're seeing a lot at St. Peter's Square today, people trading stories of being close to the Pope. We know that just a few hours before his passing, he was in St. Peter's Square. And so in the aftermath of that, people who had just seen him said that it was such a shock to see that even though they knew he was frail, even though they knew he was ill, that a few hours later he had passed away. They were hoping that he was getting better, that he was there just, you know, against doctor's orders, really. He had been told to take a rest for 2 months, but they said that despite that, it was a shock. The initial shock, though, has worn off somewhat. Now there's this atmosphere of respect. So many people, as I say, from around the world already gathering in St. Peter's Square. There will be a rosary that will be said tonight in about an hour and a half here, inviting people who have already gathered to pray for the Pope.
And Genevieve, with the shock, I guess, wearing off a little bit, what is the mood like there?
You know, it's very respectful. It's interesting to walk through the square. There's a lot of people who just say that they're in awe about being here at this particular moment. Many, as I say, find themselves here at this moment by, I suppose the word is by chance here. They didn't think they were making this trip here to see the passing of a pope and the ceremonies, these rituals, these age-old rituals that will be undertaken over the next few days. And so they say that, you know, it takes on whole new significance for them. But there is that atmosphere of respect. The significance of the moment is not lost on the so many who have gathered in the square today.
Right, CTV's Genevieve Beauchemin live at the Vatican. Thank you.
Thank you.
Still to come on CTV News at noon, some good news for the organizers of the annual Pride Parade in Toronto, a new financial lifeline. Our Mike Walker will have those details. But first, we take a live look outside at the city of Toronto this afternoon. And just like Vatican City, we too have sunshine, but not quite as warm as it is in Rome, but certainly double-digit temperatures we're anticipating. There is a lot to like. Let's bring in Lindsay Morrison with the sunny details. Lindsay.
Yeah, and Michelle, we started off with a little bit of cloud cover this morning. We did anticipate that cloud cover was going to clear. It's cleared a little bit earlier than anticipated. So yes, lots of opportunity to get outside and soak up that sunshine today. And yes, already in the double digits, 12 degrees this hour here in Toronto. We're forecasting an afternoon high of 15. You'll notice that that is near seasonal. 14 is our seasonal average. And winds today, yeah, it's still breezy out there. Those winds coming out of the west. Eventually, we're going to tap into a little bit more of a northwest wind. That will cool us down into tonight. Here's a look at the current satellite and radar. The cloud cover continues to lift. It is still mostly cloudy in eastern Ontario and around Muskoka, but brilliant sunshine expected for this evening. If you or someone you know is headed to Maple Leaf Square, conditions look good for Game 2. The Leafs taking on Ottawa. We'll have a full look at your weather for the rest of the week. That's coming up. For now, Michelle, I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Well, let's talk a little bit more about those Leafs. Just over 7 hours to go before Game 2. It's going to be an exciting time for the Leafs.
There was an optional skate this morning at Scotiabank Arena, and CTV's Sean Leithong joins us now live. Sean, it's not a must-win, but if you win Game 2, you're really in control.
Yeah, and it's something that the Leafs haven't been able to do in the last 9 years when they've made the playoffs, Nathan, is win Game 2 to go up 2-0. So it is a huge focus for the team right now because they want to get that momentum and they want to feel like they are in control of the series. Now, the Ottawa Senators are wrapping up their pregame skate right now, and they're obviously looking to do a reset from Game 1, which did not go their way. Toronto Maple Leafs winning 6-2. Things just going seemingly well for the Leafs, getting the majority of the power plays, getting all the goals they needed when they needed those goals, and seeming to hold the edge in play until the end of the game when things were a little bit rough. But this morning, the pressure's obviously on for the Leafs. It is the playoffs. It is Toronto. The Leafs dressing room full for media, trying to get a sense of what it's like in Game 2. Now, Coach Craig Berube was talking about what it's like to coach in the Battle of Ontario. Him originally being out west, he hadn't really understood what it's like, but the players were talking about what they're expecting from Ottawa today.
We know they're going to come hard. They have a chance to reset, look at video, kind of change their game, make any tweaks they need, and I'm sure they're going to be ramped up, ready to go.
We expect them to play a really good game and play their best game of the season, so we have to be able to match their execution and discipline and intensity.
It's been great. Yeah, like, you know, it's a battle. Like, it's funny, you know, like, I didn't really understand all of it, you know, before. You know, I watched it in the past, obviously, but you know, there's some hatred there for sure, and it's pretty good. I enjoy it.
So many of the players were talking about that pushback they'll expect from Ottawa and the physicality that you get from the Battle of Ontario. Coach Craig Berube there saying it is a little bit different. You can feel it in the building. He was also talking about just how powerful the crowd was in Game 1, saying the atmosphere was fantastic. They're hoping for more of that tonight. It'll all start at 7:30. Reporting live, I'm Sean Leithong. Nathan Michelle, send it back to you.
Thank you, Sean. To London now, where 5 former members of the 2018 World Junior Hockey Team have pleaded not guilty as their sexual assault trial is about to begin.
Dylan Dubé, Cal Foote, and Alex Formenton, Carter Hart, and Michael McLeod charged with sexual assault early last year in connection with an incident that allegedly took place in London, Ontario in June of 2018. Let's bring in CTV's Adrian Gobriel, who is at the London courts this afternoon. For more on this, bring us up to speed. How did the day begin in court?
Yeah, Michelle, you know, this is day one, trial day one here at the London courthouse. Before the proceedings got underway, we saw each of the players enter the courthouse here behind me. The courtroom is up on the 14th floor. That's where I spent most of my morning for a good portion of that morning, waiting to get into the courtroom. Now, we were there waiting in line as each of the players walked by, some acknowledging members of the media respectfully, others looking quite nervous, looking straight ahead as they entered into day one of a trial and a case that has garnered national and international attention. Now, today is really about selecting a jury. There's approximately 200 potential jurors who are sitting in a courtroom just down the hall on that 14th floor. We heard Justice Maria Garcia list off what she is hoping from potential jurors. There is going to be 14 selected. 2 of those 14 will be alternatives, and 12 will decide the fate of the 5 players you just mentioned.
Are each of the former junior players represented by their own lawyer? Maybe you could give us the lay of the land in that regard.
Yes, they are actually. Each player is being represented by their own lawyer, and interestingly, the jury could decide to find some players potentially guilty and other players potentially not guilty. Now, the courtroom itself, the setting itself, to paint a little bit of a picture, it's an interesting courtroom. It was reconfigured some time ago for a mass murder trial for the biker gang, the Banditos, here in London, Ontario, and some of the glassed-in casings where the accused would have sat are there. The players aren't sitting in these little glass boxes where the Banditos sat. They're sitting in a row of 5 tables, each player sitting at one of those tables with their legal representation, one after the other. And we heard each of them stand up today and tell Justice Garcia that they plead not guilty.
Adrian, jury selection has to happen first, as you noted, but when might the trial hear the opening arguments? Is that a long way away, or could that happen relatively soon?
Well, we're trying to gauge that, Michelle. Really, the jury selection could be done today, and then quickly tomorrow we could hear the Crown begin their case. We know that the alleged victim in this case is currently scheduled to take the stand this Friday, though that all depends on jury selection and the timeline. There were some technical difficulties inside the courtroom this morning, which meant jury selection was a little bit delayed, but we could see the official proceedings with the Crown beginning their case as early as tomorrow. Some say perhaps by midweek. We're going to have to wait and see. We will be covering this case all day, all week, and we will be bringing us updates to our viewers as they come.
Well, we sure appreciate it. CTV's Adrian Gobriel live in London, Ontario, covering a high-profile trial. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We turn now to the federal election campaign with less than a week to go until Canadians cast their ballots.
This morning, the Conservative leader was in Woodbridge releasing his party's costed platform.
This is my plan for change. First, we will cut the Liberal deficit by 70% by cutting back on bureaucracy, consultants, foreign aid to dictators, terrorists, and global bureaucracies, slashing money for special interests, and unleashing $500 billion of extra economic growth by unlocking the power of our resources and home building.
The Tories' platform forecasts a $31 billion deficit this year and $20 billion in revenue projected to come from counter tariffs on the U.S. The party is also promising to cut $23 billion in government program spending over 4 years. Liberal leader Mark Carney, meantime, is in Trois-Rivières, Quebec, where he promised to protect Canadian workers in the face of U.S. tariffs.
Our old relationship with the United States, a relationship based on steadily deepening integration, is over. And that's a tragedy, but unfortunately it's also our new reality. We are responding with purpose and with force. We're fighting the unjustified American tariffs with counter tariffs of our own that cause maximum damage in the United States and have a minimum impact here in Canada. We are protecting our workers and our businesses using every single dollar that we collect from our retaliatory tariffs.
Carney will also be attending a rally in Laval today. Meanwhile, Bloc Québécois leader Yves-François Blanchet was in La Malbaie this morning and was asked about an apparent bump in the polls for his party.
I'm not saying we have a bump or not, but that's the purpose of a campaign. We are trying to reach as many people as possible during 5 weeks, 4 of which are gone. There's one left. And the people hear about us and what we have to say.
Blanchet is also scheduled to attend an Earth Day rally in Quebec City at 1 o'clock this afternoon. While in Vancouver, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh will be speaking soon. Yesterday, he re-announced plans to expand pharmacare.
New Democrats in the first year will fight to expand pharmacare to include essential medications.
Singh promised to cover essential medicines by the end of the year by expanding pharmacare. The current legislation covers some diabetes medications and contraceptives. It was a key part of the NDP's supply and confidence deal that kept the minority Liberal government in power. And CTV's Colton Prale joins us now with more. Colton, a big day for the Conservatives as the party unveiled its platform. What were some of the highlights?
Yeah, I was just finishing up the math, Nathan, and getting the confirmation here, but I can give you the numbers. And first off, the biggest highlight is a 70% reduction to the deficit over 4 years. That is the promise from the Conservative government. And when you break that down as far as what the numbers actually mean, they're projecting a deficit of about $14 billion in 4 years' time. Compare that to about $29 billion, which is the PBO estimate, the Parliamentary Budget Officer's estimate. It's the baseline that all of the parties, or most of the parties, are working off of, I should say. So this is the headline here. They're the only party promising to reduce the deficit. We haven't seen a balanced budget promise in full from any party. Obviously, the Liberals have promised to balance the operating budget, but they're the only ones splitting that number up and doing the math differently than the other parties. That said, there are a couple of really key elements to this platform that I think we ought to highlight. The first of which is that tax cut that the Conservatives promised, a 15% tax cut on the lowest bracket of income tax that results in a 2.25 percentage point tax cut. The Liberals have promised a similar tax cut, but not to the same extent. It's worth pointing out that the Conservative version of this plan doesn't come into play right away. In fact, it barely comes in at all in the first year. We're looking at a cost to government of about $13.5 billion in 4 years, but they're only budgeting $1 billion in the first year and about $5.5 billion in the second year. So that tax cut is being slowly phased in. It's not something voters would notice right away, and already we're seeing the opposition highlight that and criticize them over that. The other element of this plan that I think is really important to highlight to our viewers, especially because it helps them get to a point where they are able to say that they're going to be able to tackle the deficit, is that they are including revenue gains from their proposals. Basically, this entire platform is built on the idea that they will cut red tape now. It might come at a cost, but it will incentivize private industry, and that will bring in money for the government. And if that works, it's a fantastic plan, but it does mean you're balancing your budget on money that you are expecting to come in as a result of private industry. It does mean you are relying on that to get to the final total. And that is another area that has come under fire, especially from the Liberals with regards to that kind of math. They say, I mean, Mark Carney was using the term made-up numbers in his press conference, but really you're putting yourself in a situation where if your programs don't work the way you expect them to, then the sum total you come to at the end isn't true. Now, the Liberals have similar numbers in their platform. The difference is they didn't count it as revenue. They do have multipliers that, you know, I've also seen economists cast a bit of shade on the reality of that. So for both of these parties, there is some questions around whether the policies they're performing, or pitching, I should say, will perform as well as they're saying they will.
All right, CTV's Colton Prale with a look at some of the platforms on the federal election campaign. Thank you.
Meantime, this is the last day voters can cast their ballot ahead of the April 28th election. Canadians have until 6 p.m. today to vote at an Elections Canada office in their riding. It is also the final day to apply to vote by mail on the Elections Canada website. Otherwise, ballots will have to be cast next Monday on Election Day. There was a record turnout on the first day of advanced polls with more than 2 million people casting their vote. We're looking forward to seeing the numbers from the entire advanced polling weekend. And of note, be sure to stay with CTV News next Monday night, election night, for results, analysis, and perspective from all across our country. Our election night coverage gets underway at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, led by Omar Sachedina and Vashi Kapelos. Lindsay.
Well, happy Earth Day to all those celebrating our planet today. Pretty pleasant conditions for getting outside here in the GTA. And there are things, of course, you can do today to mark Earth Day, like perhaps organizing a community cleanup. I always love that one. But there are things you can do every day as well that benefit the planet, like avoiding wasting water or planting some trees. We're going to talk about the weather for the rest of the week coming up. Chance of showers returning as early as Thursday. How does it look for the weekend? Details after this break here on CTV News at noon.
The City of Toronto is offering a financial lifeline for the annual Pride Festival.
Pride lost 3 key sponsors earlier this year, and the city's stepping up to help. CTV's Mike Walker was at the announcement with Mayor Chow this morning and has more details. Mike.
Well, Nathan and Michelle, earlier this year, Pride Toronto indicated they'd be scaling back this year's event due to the drop in those corporate sponsors. But this morning, the mayor announced a funding commitment for the next 3 years. So as part of this, Pride Toronto is seeing an increase in funding from the city to $350,000 this year through the city's Cultural Festival Funding Program. Officials with Pride Toronto say this will make up the $300,000 shortfall from a lack of sponsors that they say was connected to the backlash in the U.S. against diversity, equality, and inclusion programs. Pride was forced to cancel the stage at Dundas and Church Streets. It's also pausing a 2-day mini festival on the Toronto Islands and focusing on featuring more local artists instead of international headliners. The hope now is to add some more performers. Here's more from the mayor and the co-chair of Pride Toronto.
I'm announcing that Toronto will increase funding support for Pride by 62% by 2027, starting with a 26% increase this year. Why a multi-year funding? It is a way for us to show the confidence and give Pride Toronto the foundation to say, you're here, you're not going anywhere, we believe in you, go out there and get the partnership you need.
Many of you know, because of what is happening in the USA, we lost $300,000. So this is helping us to be able to add some events back, which we had to pull.
Now, while it's important to note, while the funding for this year's Pride is guaranteed, the next 2 years will be subject to council's approval during the budget process. The funding announced today is a part of $2.5 million the city is rolling out for a total of 64 festivals, and more than a dozen are receiving that funding for the first time. Reporting live, I'm Mike Walker. Nathan and Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Mike. Well, the Pride Parade's about 2 months away, and it finally feels like we're getting kind of like festival-type weather. We're getting there, you know, double digits.
I know, yeah. It's amazing. It'll be so warm by the time Pride gets here, but we're getting that steady warm-up this week. At least today and tomorrow are looking pretty stellar.
Not bad. I mean, seasonal average is about 14 degrees. We're anticipating the rest of the week we will be there or slightly warmer, so that's a nice change. But we're also now reaching that point in the season where, you know, it feels a little cooler by the lake at times, thanks to breezes off of Lake Ontario. So keep this in mind as we talk about the forecast daytime highs over the next couple of days. Weather is brought to you by the Pressler Law Firm Injury Lawyers. You don't pay unless they win. Nice start to the day today. Our sunrise is now happening closer and closer to 6 a.m. There was a bit of a cloud bank there early this morning, but some pretty colors in the sky at times too. That cloud cover has now moved out, and by the time we enjoy the sunset tonight after 8 p.m., we're going to have mostly clear skies. Here's a look at our current temperatures. And yes, once again, it still very much feels like winter in northern parts of Ontario, but it's 13 degrees in Windsor, 12 here in Toronto, and 10 in the Trenton area. Today's high expected to be around 15 degrees. Again, might feel slightly cooler than that the closer you are to the shore of Lake Ontario. And here's our almanac. So the record to beat for this day, 30 degrees. We're not going to be close to that, but we are near normal. 14 is the seasonal average. Yesterday, late evening, we managed to climb to about 13 degrees. We're going to reach our daytime high a little bit earlier today than we did yesterday. Worth mentioning, though, as we move through the nighttime hours tonight, the winds will change to more of a northwesterly direction, and that's going to cool us down. We also won't have the cloud cover acting as insulation. So look at the forecast lows. 0 in Waterloo, -3 in Peterborough, and -2 degrees for you in Orillia. Waking up tomorrow morning in Toronto, temperature going to be around 3 degrees. So dare I say, maybe some reaching for the winter jacket once more. But in the afternoon, nice rebound in temperature, double digits again. And yes, mainly sunny skies as well after a little bit of a cloudy start. Here's our current satellite and radar. The cloud continues to lift and make its way eastward, clearing us out quite nicely here around the Golden Horseshoe. There's the low that brought us the rain yesterday. It continues to depart, and with it goes the cloud cover. Tomorrow again, a mostly dry day with an exception or two. Let me show you. Here's our forecast radar. This evening looks great. Into tomorrow, some cloud cover early in the morning as we're waking up and heading out the door. That is expected to lift somewhat. Hamilton over toward Niagara, chance of showers for you into tomorrow afternoon. And then Thursday at this point is looking like a mostly dry day, but it's our next best chance of maybe seeing some wet weather in Toronto proper. And then that chance of showers is going to continue into the early part of the weekend. Maybe 16 degrees on Wednesday, maybe up to 20 on Thursday. But again, I do want to say it's going to feel a little bit cooler by the lake. That's your look at the weather for now. Stay with us. CTV News. We'll be right back.
Now more than ever, Canadians need to know where our leaders stand. CTV News keeps you informed on the issues that hit home. This election, connect to Canada's most trusted news source, CTV News. Now more than
A new exhibit in memory of those who died at the Nova Music Festival in Israel during the Hamas attack is opening in Toronto.
What happened at the festival is one of the worst massacres in Israel's history. CTV's Beth McDonnell joins us, and she attended a preview of the exhibit this morning, and she's here now to tell us more. Beth.
Yes, that's right, Michelle and Nathan. I just took part in a media tour of the exhibit with survivors of the Nova Music Festival who were attacked by Hamas on October 7th, 2023. This is the healing room, the final stop of the exhibit, a place to rest and reflect on everything that was observed throughout the exhibit. We started off by being shown a video explaining what the music festival was all about, the coming together of people who love music and dancing. Then we were taken into different rooms using real belongings of festival goers. We walked through a campground showing what it looked like after people got up and ran for safety. Others in the campground stayed behind and hid in trees. We also saw some of the burned out vehicles from the festival. Many people tried to escape in their cars only to be confronted by terrorists along the road. The exhibit also showcases individual stories and pictures of the people who were attacked and murdered at the festival. At times, this exhibit is raw, shocking, and emotional.
I running, I don't know how much time, but I saw tank, IDF tank, and I hiding under a tank for 7 hours. I get a shot in my leg, and I'm just waiting there alone. I lost 10 of my friends.
Show the world what happened to us, to tell our story. There was so much hate and so much denial on social media everywhere in the world. And with this exhibition, we can educate, fight anti-Semitism, and tell our stories.
Tickets are online for this exhibit, which runs until June 8th. All the proceeds go to survivors of the Nova Music Festival. And this Toronto stop comes after the exhibit went to New York, LA, and Miami. Reporting live, I'm Beth McDonnell. Michelle and Nathan, back to you.
Thank you, Beth. Closing arguments are expected to begin today in the murder trial for 2 people charged in the death of Constable Greg Perchala. Constable Perchala was fatally shot back on December 27th of 2022 while responding to a call for a vehicle in a ditch near Brantford. Randall McKenzie and Brandy Stewart Sperry are each charged with first-degree murder. They both pleaded not guilty, and their lawyers did not call any evidence. Jurors have been told deliberations could start as soon as Thursday.
In Montreal, a man in his 30s is under arrest in a case of road rage that saw a police officer drag the length of a football field on Montreal's South Shore.
He dragged her that whole strip at 65 kilometers an hour. Her knees were all ripped open through her pants. Her knees were all bloody. Her hands were bloody. Her head had hit the ground. Her face was bloody. And all she kept screaming afterwards is she thought she was going to die. She thought she was going to die.
The officer was investigating a collision when one of the drivers sped off with the officer still hanging from the car. That's when Carrie Burton sprang into action and blocked the suspect's vehicle. To other news, tattoos have been popular for years now, and many who have them are happy with the choices they've made.
But there are some who start to regret their decision, and for those people, it is getting easier to have them removed. CTV's Pat Foran reports.
At Tony Tonez Tattoo Studio in Mississauga, not only does he create vibrant tattoos for his customers, he also uses lasers to remove them. Tonez says there are many reasons why someone may want to have a tattoo removed.
You're now able to remove a pre-existing or old tattoo that you may either regret or you may have some life changes or career changes as well.
A laser is used to break up the ink beneath the skin, and the price and amount of time to remove a tattoo will depend on its size, depth, and the colors used.
Feels great. I feel like some of my mistakes are starting to get removed now.
Some of your tattoos are going away.
Yeah, I've been burning them off.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're almost gone.
Is it painful?
It's horrible.
Comedian Pete Davidson used to have over 200 tattoos, but by using laser tattoo removal, he's gotten rid of almost every one.
Are you going to keep any?
Maybe like 2 or 3, but I'm trying to clean slate it.
Removery has 5 tattoo removal locations in the GTA. The company says while about 20% of its customers remove a tattoo so they can get another one, others are looking to make a fresh start.
Often you get a name of an ex and the relationship doesn't work out, something misspelled. You can have a tattoo you got when you're 18 and you're 35 or 40, just no longer resembles who you are.
While the laser can be painful, there are numbing creams that can help. You usually need to wait about 4 to 6 weeks between treatments, so removing a tattoo can take as long as a year, requiring 6 to 12 visits. Most services will give you an idea of how long and how much removing a tattoo will cost.
Vast majority of people, once it's done, completely done, it's a new life, a new beginning. It's a reset. Everyone's very, very happy, by the time it's over.
Pat Foran, CTV News.
High blood pressure affects more than 30% of the adult population worldwide and up to 50% in several countries.
For decades, patients have been told to eat less salt, but as our health reporter Pauline Chan tells us, eating more potassium-rich foods may be even more helpful.
Professor Anita Layton has been looking at the role of potassium-rich foods like bananas and broccoli to help regulate high blood pressure.
Potassium is a very complicated electrolyte.
In Canada, about 23% of the population is living with hypertension, with another 20% showing pre-hypertension.
In the Western world, or even more than the rest of the world, we eat a lot more sodium than potassium because we eat processed food.
But Layton's research suggests foods that are high in potassium may have an even greater effect on lowering blood pressure than just reducing salt intake.
If you eat more potassium, you allow the kidney to more easily get rid of sodium.
It's like diuretics that patients with high blood pressure are often prescribed. It gets rid of more water, reducing the pressure in the blood vessels.
You don't feel it unless, until something really bad happens. So that's why it is really a silent killer.
As to how much potassium people should be taking in?
It depends on the rest of your body. Do you exercise a lot? Do you have a bum kidney? Do you have kidney disease that you don't know about?
Layton says before menopause, women have a lower risk of developing high blood pressure, but her research shows after menopause, the risk evens out. So her next phase of study will be to look specifically at older women. Pauline Chan, CTV News.
Get Toronto's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News.
Tributes have been pouring in from around the world following the death of Pope Francis, and that includes the entertainment world.
CTV's Andrea Case has more on the Catholic Church's relationship with entertainers.
The Pope is dead.
the throne is vacant.
Movies have often turned to the Vatican for fictional intrigue and award-winning drama.
This is a conclave, Aldo. It's not a war.
It is a war, and you have to commit to a side.
Most recently, Conclave pulled the curtain back on the process of choosing a pope's successor, while the two popes looked at the relationship between Popes Benedict and Francis.
Popes can't resign. If you do this, you will damage the papacy forever.
I can no longer sit on the chair of St. Peter.
In reality, the 266th Pope did things differently from his predecessors, including meeting with prominent artists and directors in 2023 and comedians in 2024. Pope Francis was often referred to as the People's Pope, a man with a sense of humor.
Whenever you can draw a knowing smile from the lips of even one spectator, you also make God smile.
Last June, in an effort to engage contemporary culture, the pontiff hosted a gathering of over 100 comedians from 15 nations, 11 of which were Americans. A lighthearted moment came at the end as Chris Rock and Jimmy Fallon and others moved in for a final photo. For Whoopi Goldberg, who starred in the films Sister Act 1 and 2, this was her second invitation to the Vatican. During her first trip, she offered Pope Francis a role in the upcoming Sister Act 3. Today, she wrote on social media, "Sail on, Pope Francis, with your love of humanity and laughter." The Pope said smiling made good blood, and if that's the case, there was a lot of good blood that day. Andrea Case, CTV News.
The Blue Jays were hoping to snap a two-game losing skid, opening a series with the Houston Astros last night.
And the pitch is drilled left field, and that one's off the wall. 2-run score, Rogers and DeCenzo. Altuve with a 2-run double, 3-0 Houston.
The Astros broke the game open in the 5th inning with 4 runs, and they continue to build on their lead from there. Houston pitcher Hunter Brown threw 9 strikeouts in 7 innings as the Jays weren't able to get the bats going, dropping the game 7-0. The two teams meet again tonight.
In the NBA, the playoffs are underway, and as the world's top players battle for basketball supremacy in one corner of our country, the origin of the sport is in the spotlight. CTV's Avery McCrae explains.
Driving into downtown St. Stephen, the building can be easy to miss. But if all goes well in the years ahead, it will be a must-stop location for all of Atlantic Canada.
Given the game was invented by the Canadian, of course, and then we had Lyman Archibald, who was trained by Dr. Naismith and came from Toronto, Nova Scotia, but came to St. Stephen and had that first game there. I think people want to preserve this.
It was October 17th, 1893, the first basketball game was played on this court, believed to be the oldest in the world, which was only rediscovered in 2010 following a fire. In recent years, plans have been announced to preserve the court and transform the space into the Canadian National Basketball Experience Museum.
Late November and early December, we received $1 million private donation as well as a $500,000 donation and a couple kind of $100,000 to $200,000 donations.
$2.5 million of the $6 million donation goal has been raised, while Liston is hopeful to also see $6 million contributed by both the provincial and federal governments. The group recently held an event in Toronto to raise awareness and generate more support for the court's restoration. Among the attendees was the CEO of Canada Basketball, a number of Toronto-based CEOs and VPs, and even New Brunswick Premier Susan Holt. With a new wave of patriotism being displayed by Canadians amid a trade war with the U.S., Toronto Raptors broadcaster and Canada Basketball board member Paul Jones says residents should embrace the country's role in creating the sport and its potential in growing the game.
Especially the younger kids, it gives them a chance to see something and touch something connected with the game that is Canadian. And you never know what inspires somebody.
Officials have a number of events planned for the summer, including the 4th annual Archie Golf Tournament, as they dribble closer to making this basketball museum dream a reality. Avery McCrae, CTV News, St. Stephen, New Brunswick.
We have breaking news and an update on a police-involved shooting. A teenage boy who was shot by 2 Toronto police officers in North York died this morning in hospital. That word comes from Ontario's Special Investigations Unit. The shooting happened at Bathurst and Shepherd late Sunday night. The SIU says the boy was 16 years old. We're continuing to follow this story, and you can watch for updates on CTV News Toronto and on CP24.
Well, if you thought the lines were long when you voted at an advanced poll, you won't be surprised by what we've just learned about the turnout this election. According to the preliminary figures from Elections Canada, 7.3 million people cast a ballot in advanced polls. That is a 25% increase from the 5.8 million electors who voted in advance in 2021. Elections Canada stresses this is an estimate. Some polls may not have reported yet. Now, this is Earth Day.
And some students in Richmond Hill took the opportunity this morning to help make a difference. More than 300 of them celebrated the day at David Dunlap Observatory Park. The elementary students planted 450 native trees and shrubs. They're working to build up to 8 hectares of new tree canopy and improve biodiversity. The trees will also help provide a habitat for local wildlife. Organizers say today is part of an effort to help grow the urban forest.
And it also happens to be a lovely day to enjoy our beautiful Earth.
Yes, get outside and enjoy this afternoon, because as we make our way into this evening, the temperature is going to cool quite a bit. Here's our forecast low. 3 degrees is what we're calling for. That's a little bit cooler than normal. Tomorrow's looking like a very nice day. And then one more look at the 7-day forecast shows the chance of showers into the weekend. Nathan and Michelle.
All right. Thank you, Lindsay. And that's CTV News at noon. Remember, you can get Toronto's breaking news all day long on CP24 and at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Lindsay Morrison and the whole team here, have a pleasant afternoon. I'm Michelle Dubé.
And I'm Nathan Downer. Be sure to join us later for CTV News at 5 and 6. Have a great afternoon.